Blessings and peace to all the viewers out there tuning in. All praises to the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this is the continuation of the series of Paul's epistles. Today is episode number 3. The topic is Paul never preached against the law. And as always, without further ado, let's get into it. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things God had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Most High, and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. So basically, this is Paul giving a report to the elders on his ministry with the Gentiles. And at the same time, there were a bunch of Jews or Israelites that were also believing on the Messiah and were keeping the law. That's after the Messiah's ascension up into heaven. They were still keeping the law. And they are informed of thee that you teach all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they heard not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it therefore? The multitude must need to come together, for they will hear that you are come. So there is there's a sect of Israelite that inform the others that Paul is teaching against the custom of the Israelites, and now they are getting ready to come and confront Paul because they heard that he's already there. Do therefore this that we say to thee. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. Take them and purify thyself with them, and be our charge with them, that they may shave their heads, and all may know that those things whereof they are informed concerning thee are nothing, but that thyself also walk orderly and keep the law. So now the elders is telling him, okay, you need to do that. You need to take those men that have a vow on them and purify yourself with them. So that when the people see that, they will be convinced that you are not doing anything against the law. And part of the vow was to shave their heads and offering certain type of animal for everyone else. Then Paul took the men, and the next day, purifying himself with them, entered into the temple to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on them, crying out, Man of Israel, help! This is the man that teach all men everywhere against the people and against the law in this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple and have polluted this holy place. So now these Israelites who are accusing Paul, now they are shouting all over the place. They're stirring up the multitude. They're basically stirring up a tumult to come up and watch Paul, because they were accusing Paul of teaching against the customs and the law of the Israelite. And not only that, they're accusing Paul of bringing Gentiles and Greeks into the temple, which is actually against the law and the customs. So these were the allegation or accusation that they made against Paul. For they had seen before with him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. So he said they suppose. So that means they assume it is not true. It is not true. They claim that Paul was along with a Gentile, an Ephesian, and they went into the temple. That's what he said, because they supposed, which is not true. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And ultimately, the people, they snatched Paul. They ran over Paul and they snatched him. They grabbed Paul by his clothes and they drew him out of the temple, because they thought that what they said to the people that accused Paul, what they said was actually true, which is not. They only supposed, because they were trying to find a reason to condemn Paul. But as you continue reading down the same chapter, there's a certain chief captain that took Paul away from these people, from the Israelite, that were snatching and beating Paul. They were beating Paul so bad that this chief captain came along and took Paul away from them and took him to another place. He took him from Jerusalem, because this one was happening in Jerusalem. So he took him and they went into another city, which is called Caesarea. And after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders, and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and the ringleader of the sect of Nazarenes, who also have gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain came upon us, and with a great violence took him away out of our hands. So now all of these people that were accusing Paul with the elders, they came down to Caesarea, and they were given an account of what actually happened. They were given the version of the story, which was actually false. They were accusing Paul of profaning the temple by bringing Gentile into the temple, which is actually not true, and accusing Paul of preaching against the law. Then Paul, after that the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, For as much as I know that you have been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because that you may understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship, and there neither found me in a temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city. Neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. So Paul is telling to the governor, these people cannot prove anything that they're accusing me of. They cannot prove it, because they know for a fact that I was not talking or keeping company. I was not entering into the temple with any Gentile. I was not preaching against the law. They know it and they cannot prove it. This is what Paul was saying. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophet. I think we need to read this again. We need to read this one more time. Paul is saying, regardless of what they said, I'm gonna confess right over here in front of everybody that I worship the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I believe in all things written in the law and the prophet. Telling you that the brother Paul never preached against the law. Paul never preached against the law. The people that said that Paul preached against the law, they are misunderstanding Paul's letters. So that's why I made the videos, the episode number 2 called "The Stumbling Blocks of the Paul's Letters." This is why people are confused. There's stumbling blocks in Paul's letters, but this is happening in Acts 24th chapter, because this is before the letters of Paul. Paul says he believes everything in the law, and that's was also happening after Christ or the Messiah's death. After the Messiah's death and ascension up into heaven, Paul said, I believe in everything written in the law. He's not against the law. People believe that he's against the law because they misunderstand the writings of the brother Paul's. Now, when Festus was coming to the province, after 3 days he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem. And when he had tarried among them more than 10 days, he went down unto Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, commanded Paul to be brought. And when he was come, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem stood round about, and laid many and grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. They themselves, they knew it. They could not prove all of these allegations against Paul. They can't. They were just trying to find fault with the brothers. They could not prove anything they were trying to charge the brother with. They just wanted to condemn Paul. That's it. While he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, neither against the temple, nor yet against Caesar, have I offended anything at all. Again, Paul is telling you for the second time, I have never offended anything against the law or the temple. All these accusations and allegations are devoid of foundation and proof. They cannot prove it. All these allegations are built off of the sea. You can't prove that. Paul says that he believes everything written in the law and the prophets. So if you think that Paul is a confusing brother walking around and he doesn't know what he's talking about, you the one who have a problem, because you don't understand anything about the letters of Paul, especially those that come from the Christian church, because the Christian church is based and founded upon the misinterpretation of Paul's epistles. But Festus, willing to do the Jews a pleasure, answered Paul and said, will that go up to Jerusalem and there be judged of these things before me? Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you know very well. So Festus, these governors in Caesarea, he was trying to please the Jews, because he knew the Jews wanted to condemn him out of envy. He wanted to please the Jews. He said, he was asking Paul if Paul will go back to Jerusalem and to be judged over there. And Paul says, no, I didn't do anything to these Jews. I didn't do anything to them. So I'm not about to go back to Jerusalem, because they're trying to kill me. Because they were taken earlier in the 24th chapter, the Jews, they took a crafty counsel against Paul in order to kill him. They wanted to put him to death. So Paul heard about it And that's why Paul said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere back in Jerusalem. I'm staying right over here at Caesar's judgment seat because I didn't do anything to these people. For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. So Paul is said, put me to death if I did anything against you people, or if I teach or preached against the law and brought the Gentile into the temple, I refuse not to die. Which means go ahead and put me to death right now. Because he knows he didn't do anything, and they know it as well. But if there be none of these things whereof they accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar. Paul said, I'm staying right over here at Caesar's judgment seat. I'm not going anywhere because I didn't do anything. I'm not stupid. I am not stupid. I'm not going to let myself kill for something that I didn't do. I'm staying right here. I'm staying right here. So basically, Paul never actually preached against the law. So that's why in the previous episode, I told you that Paul's epistles, they are the last portion of the Bible for you to be dealing with, especially if you don't have a good foundation of the Old Testament. Because everybody from the prophet all the way down to Acts, everybody told you had to keep the law. You have to keep the law. So how all of a sudden now you jump into Paul's letters and you talking about Paul is against the law. Paul says not to keep the law. So now the laws are done away with. No, this is the Christian doctrine. The Christian doctrine which was founded and based upon the misinterpretation of the letters of Paul. That's it. So now we're going to go into some of these stumbling blocks one more time in Paul's letters, and we're going to be using it as a dividing factors between those that have a pure heart and those that have a wicked heart. And you're going to have to make a choice, because the Most High always give you two choices. Because in one chapter, Paul says don't keep the law, but in another chapter he said you have to keep it. So you're going to understand that this is a trap. This is a trap that's used as a dividing factor to those that have a pure heart and those that have a wicked heart. Therefore, by the deed of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. So this is one of them stumbling blocks in Paul's letters, that the people with the wicked heart is going to take it as an excuse to be lawless without having any understanding, without trying to understand what it actually says or see other aspect of it, or looking at without looking at other verses that might say otherwise. Therefore, we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. So once again, this is the breaking point. Somebody with a wicked heart that will stand right here and say, you see, brother, we don't have to keep the laws because we are not justified by the deeds of the law, but by faith. All you have to do is have faith. That's it. You don't have to do nothing. Just believe. This is a stumbling block. This is a trap right here. Because you are being trapped in a corner if you don't have any understanding of what's going on. So this is the first choice. So now we're going to go into the second choice and you're going to have to pick. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yet we establish the law. Hey, so now, this is the first problem that you're going to run into. Getting to trying to dabbling in Paul's letters. Talking about Paul teach against the law. We just read that Paul says that we are not justified by the deed of the law, but by faith. And at the bottom, he gives you another choice. He said, does that mean that we make the law null and void through faith? He said, God forbid, which means no, because we established the law, so we need to keep the law. The law is valuable. He's trying to tell you that faith without works is dead. That's what Paul is trying to tell you. For not the hearers of the law are just before the Most High, but the doers of the law shall be justified. You see? So those are the two choices that you have. So those who have a wicked heart, they're going to pick the first choice. Talking about, we conclude that a man is not justified by the law, but by faith. But those that have a pure heart, they're going to understand. They're going to stick to the second choice, that we're not supposed to be making void the law through faith. And they're going to go back to what we went over in Acts the 25th chapter, where Paul says that he believes in everything in the law. Paul never preached against the law, ladies and gentlemen. For those who understand that, peace be unto you. But for those who want to struggle and wrestle against the scriptures, that's on you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So, hopefully you've been edified on this subject. And if you didn't understand the topic, I want you to rewind it, watch it again, and take note. And just pray and ask the Most High to give you understanding and discernment for a better understanding. So on that note, I'm going to say peace and blessing. Stay tuned for the next video on Paul's epistles.